There is something that really affects so many women in our 40s and 50s and beyond, and we tend to suffer in silence, and that is emotional eating. Now, last week on the podcast, we talked about body image and our mindset around our bodies in midlife. So if you haven't listened to episode 82 from last week, I'll put it in the show notes. Just go grab it, listen to that one as well. These two go together really nicely. This week, we're talking about emotional eating, and what comes along with that is often shame, not liking how we look, stress. It's all of that together. It's hard, and we don't talk about it. So that's what we're going to do today. Stick with me. Welcome to Mind Your Midlife, your go-to resource for confidence and success, one thought at a time. Unlike most advice out there, we believe that simply telling you to believe in yourself or change your habits isn't enough to wake up excited about life or feel truly confident in your body. Each week, you'll gain actionable strategies and, oh my goodness, powerful insights to stop feeling stuck and start loving your midlife. This is the Mind Your Midlife podcast. I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you may be struggling in silence with some sort of eating habits that you're not happy about. Now, you may not. You may be feeling very healthy about your eating habits, and that's amazing. But you never know who in your life might need support as well. And quite frankly, sometimes we just need to hear that the things that we find difficult are also things that other people might find difficult. We're not different. We're not odd. We're not worse than anyone else, to use terms that we kind of tell ourselves. And boy, when we talk about emotional eating or food addiction or binge eating, there is a lot buried in here about what we tell ourselves. And when you start talking about something that has shame involved, ooh, watch out. Whatever you're telling yourself is probably not anything you would ever say to anyone else in your life. Never. Maybe not even your enemy. We are so hard on ourselves. And so I want today to have a conversation with my guest about what emotional eating looks like, how it happens, kind of where it comes from, and then what can we do if we recognize some of this in ourselves? And guess what? You can get better. Your habits can get better. When I was in my 20s, I was binge eating. And it took me a while to recover from that. And there are things I do to this day because of that experience. For example, I never count calories. I never count macros ever. I eat in a certain way so that I can eat healthy, but I know that that is not good for me. Everyone is different. And some of this food and counting stuff, that's just the symptom. And you're going to hear us talk about that. My guest today, Tricia Nelson, lost 50 pounds by identifying and healing that underlying stuff that she was dealing with her emotional eating. She was masking her emotions. She has since spent 30 years researching what was going on with that addictive personality, with that emotional eating, and she's created a process for overcoming that. So she is the creator of the Heal Your Hunger system, the writer of a best-selling book called Heal Your Hunger, 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating, and she hosts the podcast Confessions of a Binge Eater. She also has done a TED Talk on garbage eating that has over 1 million views. So I am excited to talk to her today. Okay, welcome, Tricia.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
This is a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart, so I'm excited to be talking about this. Thanks for joining me.
You
All
bet.
right, so let's dive in. I feel like in midlife, in our 40s and our 50s, our bodies kind of start changing sometimes. And that means that maybe we get upset, we feel like our bodies are betraying us, or we get more critical, or we get careful about our eating habits. And
Mhm.
then maybe some of us realize that there's a lot of emotions involved with that. And so we're going to be talking about emotional eating today. And you frame this as a self care topic. So tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, in part, self-care. There's many different pieces to the puzzle, but yeah, in large part, I mean, when we're overeating, when we're choosing to eat the snacky foods, obviously, we're not putting the best foods in our body for our highest and best health and optimization, right? So, I mean, it's
Hmm.
fundamentally not good self care when we're eating carbs and sugar and processed foods. However, we can know that till the cows come home, and yet we do it anyway.
Yes,
so
so true.
so it's there's the rub. And having been 50 pounds overweight and having been addicted to those foods, like I just wanted those, and anytime I ate sugar, I wanted more sugar. So it was tricky because those are the foods that brought me comfort in the moment. So we
Mhm.
can sometimes feel like, yeah, but I'm being good to myself because I'm allowing myself to have the chocolate, or I get to have this Sunday. I've worked so hard all week long. I'm rewarding myself. So, trust me, I've done it all. I've said it
So
all.
have
I've done
I.
it all. So we think sometimes as food as self care. And the thing is, we have to sort of play the tape forward. And what happens when we lose control and then we binge and then we feel stuffed and sick and we're like stuck on the couch and we cancel, brunch with the girlfriends the next day because we just are doing a little therapy and pulling the sheets over our head. So it's like, did I just reward myself or did I just punish myself? And
Yeah.
so it's a common theme for us, and that certainly was my pattern. And so we have to really dig into it a little bit more, like, wow, why would I put foods in my body that made me feel like crap? Why would I eat to feeling completely stuffed? Why would I gain that weight when I was doing so well for so long, And so
Mhm.
really, really important that we like look into this and start to ask the important questions, like what's going on underneath. And that's what we
Yeah.
fail to do so much of the time. And lack of self-care, frankly, Cheryl, shows up in so many ways and so many self-sabotaging ways. Like we stay up too late doom scrolling on Facebook, or
Yeah.
we just burn the candle at both ends and, trying to prove our worth. Will you approve of me? Will you validate me if I do this extra project at work? We're constantly seeking that validation when we don't have it for ourselves. So these are some of
Right.
the issues we have to flesh out and start asking ourselves about in order to really have a healthier relationship with food. Like it doesn't just happen. It does take intention, but it also takes removing the focus from the symptom of food and weight. Like that's just, it's where we go. How do I get this weight off? How do I look better in my jeans? And we're constantly, what diet should we go on? Should we do keto? Should we do intermittent fasting? Yada yada, when we need to start thinking, like, what am I doing to myself and why am I
Mhm.
doing that?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And there's some I can see how I always say everything in moderation. Maybe occasionally you eat the cake or you go out for the whatever, or it's fine to eat unhealthy things occasionally, but there's some point at which it does get connected with emotions, and you mentioned binging. There's some point where we're kind of losing control, I guess, is where it changes into something that can be a problem. So what does it look like? How can someone know that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we can have a lack of self care in our restriction, right? If we're super restrictive with food and super like in diet culture of this is good and this is bad, the black and white, that's not self-caring either. So that's definitely not what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and
Good
it leads
point.
to binge eating anyway, right? It's just like
Yeah.
like nothing's been solved. But it's really changing our relationship with food, where food becomes how we care for ourselves, and we're eating things that really nurture and sustain our bodies and gives us energy. And so that's harder to achieve when we're stressed, when we're burning the candle at both ends, and when we're struggling in self-confidence. And so it's like food is the barometer. I mean, we can
Yeah.
look at our relationship with food and see what's going on with us. When things have gone to hell in a handbasket, it's like, okay, pump the brakes. What's going on? And so often it has to do with stress. Stress so there's three main drivers of unhealthy eating habits. And unhealthy on one side, and then the compulsion to eat, the binge
Mhm.
eating when we absolutely are like, I have to have food now, like Katie bar the door. And so that compulsion, feeling compelled to eat when we're not even hungry, that comes from
Right.
three places. And the first is emotional. So often we're out of touch with our emotions. And, the women I serve are busy professionals. They're smart. They've been to therapy. They've done all kinds of they did Janine Roth in the 80s. They did all kinds of workshops and self-love workshops, blah, blah, blah. And yet it doesn't translate to food, And so the thing is, it seems strange that we are, needing to address our emotions when we've been in therapy forever.
Yeah.
Like we're like, I know what my stuff is. Like I know what the trauma was, right? So
Yeah.
we think
Yeah.
we know, but there are emotions on a daily basis
Yeah.
in our present day life that are getting completely pushed aside
Yeah.
because we're so damn busy. And our
Mhm.
busy can be a compulsion in and of itself because it keeps us distracted from what we're feeling, or it
Mhm.
keeps us distracted from a relationship that really needs some closer attention, or some boundaries that we're not drawing in relationships with our parents or with our kids or grandkids. And so there's a lot that deserves attention that has nothing to do with, the big T trauma back in our past. It's like day to day, we are piling on emotions and we're stuffing them down, with those late night, bowls of popcorn and cereal. And so, really important to know that it's those emotions, if we don't get intentional about attending to our emotional selves, then we're going to be looking for food, because sugar and carbs are such an awesome way
Yeah.
to stay numbed out,
Yeah.
So that's the first way, that's the first thing that drives that drive to eat, the food noise, if you will. Like everybody's looking for meds now to quiet the food noise. The food noise comes from buried emotions. It comes from stress, which is being too busy, being addicted to busy, and validation seeking, and being on the hamster wheel, which, even though it's stressful and not fun, we're a little addicted to it because we love
Mhm.
feeling needed and wanted. so so
Yes.
there's some feedback loop going on there. And then the last thing also is just the habit of having food be your happy place, the habit of
Mhm.
food being the place where you just like chill out at night, and the cares of the day fall away, and it's just you and your food, and it's like, leave me alone. I deserve this. It's been a busy day. And so the habit of that, of using food for comfort, of it being your solace, of it being your buddy, of it being your way to tune everything else out, and also as a way to just stop being so damn responsible, because we're so good at taking care of everybody else. It's like, damn it, this is my time, and yet we're not necessarily making choices that serve us. And so those are the three things that to me we need to really put a spotlight on, like the emotions, the stress, and just the habit of
Yeah.
using food for emotional reasons.
And it's interesting. I remember when my kids were younger, I would always read, don't use food as a reward because you're teaching that habit of,
Yeah.
I did something good, so now I get the food. And so we would do it sometimes, but we would try to vary it at least so that it wasn't always, ooh, something good happened, now I get food. But I do think a lot of us have that habit from just our experiences. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just easy to do. Like when we're working so hard and we're so ultra responsible and we're caring for so many people, it's like, where's mine? Especially because it's so like it's a thankless job being a mom. It's a thankless job being a mom or a daughter to aging parents. Like
Yeah.
it's stressful and nobody's really stopping to say, wow, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And so we do that for ourselves through food, and it's just an easy fallback, but it is a pretty pernicious habit that takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. And I think the first one you mentioned, the emotions, that to me, or maybe for me, that was the trickiest piece when I was binge eating when I was back in my 20s for a while. And it was hiding emotions, exactly as you say. And I was in therapy for a period of time, and she would say to me, "Well, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?" And I couldn't answer. I had no idea.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, we're not necessarily very in touch in our 20s for one thing. So,
That's true.
it takes some time. I mean, most of the women I serve are in their, 50s, 60s, and
Yeah.
70s, just like people listening here, because it takes time for us to wake up to our emotional selves. Like we're on that drive, and on the wheel for so long. And when we are eating, we don't know how we feel because the food does numb us out. And it's really
Mhm.
hard to wake up. It's just like being drunk all the time. It's like, who the hell knows what we're feeling? I feel tired. That's about it.
But I have to stay busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would think, I feel like even though midlife is a period of tremendous change, which I talk about all the time, it feels like everything is changing, our kids, our parents, our bodies, our careers, everything. However, we do have typically a little bit more time than we might have had in the past 10 or 15 years. And I think if we are in that sort of second category where we're addicted to being busy, that could be particularly hard at this period of time if suddenly we have a free evening and we don't have to take kids anywhere and we just don't know what to do with ourselves. Do you find that to be the case for some people?
Yes, I have so many people say, "Oh, I just eat because I'm bored." Like I have all this idle time and I don't know what to do with myself. I think bored is a misnomer. It's really we have time on our hands and we're not comfortable with being with ourselves. And
Yeah.
so, and bored becomes the catch-all term, but it's really like super uncomfortable with that idle time and also uncomfortable with not being distracted. And so I think that is hard for people. And it's also comes with a lack of understanding of who we are now. You've
Yeah.
gone through all these stages of life and now like who the hell am I? Kids are gone. What's next? I'm heading towards retirement and boy is that really gonna be an eye opener. Like where's my purpose gonna come from? So I think all that stuff definitely contributes to that unconscious eating, that just nervous snacking, just to keep ourselves a little bit distance from some of those
Mhm.
existential questions that make us feel super anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely agree. And you mentioned earlier too that sometimes people fall into the trap of going really hard on a diet. And maybe is it because they go too far? That's the problem, or they try to be overly strict in kind of a response to this?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a trap. It's the craziest thing, but emotional eaters, and if people don't know if they're an emotional eater, by the way, I just want to mention that I have a quiz on my website. It's an emotional eating quiz that people can take, and Takes like 3 minutes, but it'll tell you if you're an emotional eater or an actual food addict because it's a spectrum. And where you are on that spectrum, is determined basically by two things: number of consequences that you have and the level of control that you have. So if you take that
Mm,
quiz, you'll get a score based on those two things. The high
right.
end of the spectrum is food addiction, which I totally was food addicted. But restricting is crazy because every emotional eater, whether they're on the high end of the spectrum or not, it's to me, overeating and undereating are driven by emotions, whichever side you're on. If
Oh,
you're restricting, you're doing it for emotional reasons. If you're like a little mouse with a Larabar all day long, like something's up,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
like you're trying to control something, and if you're trying to control it, it's out of control. Even if your eating is restrictive, it's emotionally driven, which is why I like the umbrella term of emotional eating.
Mhm.
But the restricting is a setup because at some point we binge. That's why intermittent fasting is tricky for us because, some people use intermittent fasting just because they're so out of control with food. It's like, let me stay out of the kitchen for 14 hours. That way, at least I'm guaranteed not to eat during that time. And I'm
Mm,
always like, "Yeah, that's not really a winning
mm,
solution. Let me just stay out of the kitchen." Like there's gotta be a better way, like, than avoidance of the kitchen. But the point is, when we do open up our window and we have a tendency to overeat or be dysregulated with food, that open window can cause binging, and just being out of control. So the starving thing doesn't work well for us. And I really think in part it's because at one time in our lives, food saved our lives. When we did
mhm,
have trauma in our past or major dysfunction, when everything was chaotic and out of control, the thing that was there for us was food. And so there's a little part of us, deep down in our psyche, which remembers food saving our lives in some
mhm.
cases. It's not like we had drugs or alcohol we could turn to when we're 7 years old and having
Right.
abuse. So the food was there for us. So there's a piece of us that if we go too long without eating, if we're in starving mode or fasting mode, sometimes it can trigger that sort of life and death feeling like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, where's my food? And then it causes the overeating
Yeah,
subconsciously. Like we don't say, oh, I think I'm gonna die, I'm gonna eat. It's more of a
yeah.
subconscious reaction. But the black and white, oftentimes as emotional eaters, like I used to be like, oh, I'm going to skip lunch and then, I'll really get ahead or I'll be able to eat more later, or then I can eat that yummy rich cake. And then I'd overeat. I could never quite judge, okay, I missed this many calories at lunch. I'm going to eat that many calories later. Oh, hell no. It was those calories and then might as well have those as well? So
Yeah.
it got away from me really fast. And so the machinations we do, or I'm going to exercise extra so I can have the
Mhm.
cake or whatever. Some people might have it down to a T, but I always overshot the mark. Like I messed up the calculations somehow and lost control. And it was hard for me to exercise. Once I'd binged, it was hard for me to exercise off what I'd binged. I was amazed that I could eat 2,000 calories in a sitting. And then when I'm eating health, like ice cream and cookies and popcorn, whatever. And then when I was eating clean, eating salads and good healthy proteins and fats, how full I'd get on a salad. I'd be like, how could
Mm.
that be? I just ate like a pint of Ben and Jerry's. It's kind of crazy. So not just, but when I was in binging mode, I could pack away so many calories. But anyway, not everybody ate like I did. I was truly food addicted. But, we do crazy things around food. And then what's even worse is we feel ashamed. Like we're like,
Yes.
in my TEDx talk, I describe what I call garbage eating, where I'd get my favorite foods at
Mm.
the store and I'd start to watch my favorite TV shows. And I didn't plan on eating all those foods. But then before I knew it, I'd eaten a good bit of it all. I'd gone back for seconds and thirds, and I never put the lid back on the pint of Ben& and Jerry's, and then
Mm.
I felt so sick, and then I just throw that food out, and, like, anything that was left, the remains, like, I was so full, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm never eating this again." I'd throw it out, and then I'd go back and get it later when I had more room in my stomach, and I was like, "Oh my god, I am the worst person in the world." So I reenact that in my TEDx talk, and boy, did it hit a chord with so many people who have done the garbage eating thing. The problem is you think you're the only one. And
Right.
so then people are like, "I'm the worst person in the world, and it's my big secret. Nobody's ever gonna
Can't
know."
tell.
Never
Yes.
mind that everybody's doing it. Not everybody, but you know what I mean? It's like a certain kind of person is doing that, and we all think we're the only ones, and then it just leads to more eating because we're hiding this terrible, shameful, dark secret that we think is only ours, and it completely perpetuates the cycle.
Right, because you're eating to hide from that emotion that you feel about eating. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and you're beating
Absolutely.
yourself up, and then, after a flogging, you just wanna be comforted with more food.
Absolutely. I get it. I get it. And so you've shared your story quite a bit. What was it for you that was the turning point where you started to make some changes? Let's pause for a quick second because I want to let you in on how I start every single morning. At this stage of life, I absolutely refuse to deal with a 20-step morning routine. You have heard me say that. I just want to feel my best. For more than 2 years, my non negotiable has been this one simple duo. It easily checks off my daily veggies, probiotics, vegan collagen builder, all at once, and it gives me great, clean energy. And I literally never travel without it. If you want to streamline your mornings with healthy habits, check out the Green Synergy Elixir and Energy Fizz Duo over at CherylPFisher.com/greens.
Yeah. So I was incredibly blessed in that I started my search. I had an older sister who is an emotional eater, and she had heard the term emotional eating, and this is back in the 80s, and she came home and she's like, "I'm an emotional eater." And I did not like my sister. So I was like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of." And then and then, of course, I'm like, "I'm not an emotional eater, I just like food." So that was my
Uh-huh.
declaration. But I'll be darned, not too long after that, I'm noticing how I am with food. I'm like, not really normal around food. And my girlfriends, I grew up in the Northeast, so we'd go to Friendly's Ice Cream and, it was a sandwich shop and we'd get like a sandwich and it would come with fries and they'd eat their sandwich and pick at their fries. And I would look at them like they were the strangest people in the world because I'd eat my fries and pick up my sandwich. And then I'd be
Ah.
like, I want their fries too. So it was hard for me to not eat the ooey gooey, chewy, sweet foods, ice cream, hot fudge sundae. I mean, hot fudge sundae, you have that long spoon, totally dating myself here. That long spoon and the long
Everybody
sundae
listening's
cup.
gonna know, don't worry.
so they'd start to eat a hot fudge sundae. They do the cherry, do the whipped cream, they eat a few bites, and then they push it away and they're like, "I'm full." And I'd be like, "Full? What does full have to do with it anyway?" And so I just started to realize I'm not like them. Like, I am different around food.
Uh-huh.
So this term emotionally eating started to really, filter into my consciousness to where I realized I'm not normal. So I started this quest of trying to figure out what to do. And I did so many different things. I mean, I did 12-step programs, I did eating disorders therapy, I read all the self help books. And, I was going at it pretty hard so that by age 21, my pattern was to be on some kind of strict food plan, lose weight, and then blow it and go back up the scale again,
Mm.
which of course is
Yeah,
not, I was definitely not the only one on that ride. And
absolutely.
yeah, and so, after doing that several times, I'd actually lost a bunch of weight, lost like 40 pounds, and I remember I was on this very strict food plan where if there's one green bean out of place, like you blew it and you had to start your day count over. And so, so here I was doing the strict weighing and measuring, and then I had a friend over and I put a big thing of red grapes in a bowl, and after visiting for a couple hours, I walked my friend to the door and came back and all the grapes were gone. And I was like, Where'd the grapes go?" And it wasn't like he hadn't eaten them. And I just thought, "I'll be damned." I just ate a whole bowl of red grapes. Now, red grapes, no big deal, but I knew where I was headed, right? The red grapes, which were not on the plan, were about to turn into donuts at the donut shop at the end of the street. And sure enough. And so I was like, "I cannot keep doing this. I
Yeah.
cannot keep blowing it and then gaining all the weight back, which is so unhealthy." And I just started fitting into my cute clothes, and I felt so,
Mm.
like, great, and I'd spent all this money, and boom, I was kinda done at that point, Cheryl. I just thought, "I can't do it. I cannot." And I actually, to be honest, I was so young, and I just thought, "I can't do this for another 70, 80 years. I can't do the
Mm.
yo-yo dieting thing." So I was very blessed to just think, there's no way I can do this." And I was very blessed to meet somebody who was more of a spiritual mentor, and he had been obese and he'd kind of overcome that through spiritual and emotional, psychological means. And he started to mentor me, and everything turned around because I was no longer dieting. I was no longer focused on food and
Yeah.
weight, which are symptoms. Overweight is a symptom of overeating, and overeating is a symptom of what's eating me. And so that's what we did. Like, what's eating me, and how do I change the patterns that were set at, not so long ago, but definitely when I was a kid at that point. So that changed everything. And then I started working with him to help others. And literally I did that through my 20s, 30s, 40s, and now my 50s. And so that's what I
Mhm.
do. I just have devoted my life. He's passed on now, bless his heart, but he helped me heal, and I'm just carrying on everything I learned from him and the work that we did. The work we did together with people, so laboriously, was like just one person at a time, in the living room, sort of like old school, just one, like just sitting with people and teaching them things, which was so unduplicatable and unscalable. And
Mhm.
so what I did, is I founded Heal Your Hunger 10 years ago, and put everything that we used to do with people. I put it in a book. I codified it, put it in a book, called Heal Your Hunger. Started my podcast, which is now
Mhm.
Confessions of a Binge Eater, and started my online program. So I started helping women online overcome emotional eating, and I've never looked back. It's been so fabulous and fun and rewarding, and I've helped like thousands of women heal their relationship with food as a result.
I love that. I love that. And the quote you just said, and I don't know if I'm going to get it. You said, overeating is a symptom of, do you remember what you said?
Oh, yes, overweight is a symptom
Overweight.
of overeating, and overeating is a symptom of what's eating me.
I love that. So appropriate because, and at this period of time, I feel like we think we should have it together. I'm in my 50s
Oh,
as
yeah,
well. Like,
that's right.
shouldn't we know what we're doing at this point? Like, we should have it together. And so maybe we even hide things like this even more because there's even more self-judgment. I don't know. Maybe.
Yes, yes. Well, when we do have it together in so many areas of our life, it's so like we feel so ashamed for not being able to control food. I hear it all the time. Women are like, I have degrees, I have a
Mhm.
high-paying job, I've got like I've raised a family. What the hell? Like why, when I can control so many things in my life, why am I so out of control with sugar or with carbs and with food in
Yeah.
general? Like, this is so out of alignment, but it doesn't matter. Or people are like health practitioners or doctors, and they're like, I help people heal, and I'm at night, raiding the cupboards. And so
Yeah.
there's extra shame about that.
Yeah.
But it's like
Absolutely.
people need to be so compassionate with themselves because this isn't something that degrees can fix. Like, it's not about how much you know. And of course, the more out of control we are, the more we study and we read the books and we do like read the studies, and knowledge will not fix this. Like, it's a
Right.
deeper problem. We need to go deeper to heal it. And I don't mean therapy. I mean like just having a system for healing emotional eating specifically, because you can go to therapy and it won't
Yeah.
impact your food problem. If nothing else, it'll actually sometimes make it worse. Like, I used to binge after my therapy sessions because it, like, totally unlocked all this, and then I'd go
Yeah.
run for the food to
Yeah.
pack it all down again because I didn't have a system for dealing with my emotions in a healthy way. It would just tip me over,
Yep.
and then, of course, food's the thing I would turn to.
Yep. Yep. Because again, you made a habit out of that or it allowed you to avoid something. Absolutely. Okay. So I will make sure that your quiz link is in the show notes. So if
Great,
someone
thanks.
is thinking, oh, that might be me, she might be talking about me. Obviously, they should take the quiz, which is why I said that. But also, what is maybe a good first step for someone who's listening who's like, oh, I think,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, if there's a little too much identification with what I'm saying, I totally get it. You're in good company with jillions of other women. The quiz is a great first step because it's quick, and it'll give you a personalized score. It'll give you some next steps. My book is on my website
mhm,
as well. So everything's at healyourhunger.com. Even a link to my podcast, which is Confessions of a Binge Eater. I am Tricia Nelson _ on Instagram. I have lots of inspirational posts on Instagram. But that quiz is a great first step. Find out your personalized score and then next steps. And there's the good news is there's a way out of it. Like, you can stop
mhm.
like hating yourself and hating your body, and get back on track. Like, get back on track, feel in control around food. It doesn't have to be, something that just kind of discolors everything. And it does. Like, how we
Yeah.
eat and how we're relating with food as women, it affects everything. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just
Yeah.
about not fitting in our bikinis. Like, it affects our sex life. It affects, our show up and how confidently we show up at
Yep.
work and with our friends. I mean, it affects whether we show up at the reunion,
Mhm.
on Zoom with our video on. I mean, it is coloring everything: our health, our spirituality, our mobility, how we're going to show up with our grandkids one day. So it's pretty important that we put the spotlight on this and start taking care of it and getting support for it. And that's the other thing too, Cheryl, I just want to end with, it's okay to get help with your eating. We have
Mm.
a lot of self-judgment about that. We don't mind hiring a trainer. Like, we know damn well we're going to we're going to do better at the gym, and go, like, finish the reps when somebody's standing there, tracking us, timing
Making
us.
us
Like,
do
we're going
it.
to do better. Yeah. Like, there's no shame in that. But when it comes to food, oh, that's fine. I'll figure it out on my own. No, you won't, or you would have already. So
Yeah.
get coached, like, get support, get with a community of people who are on the same track of making healthier choices. It's going to make it so much easier, and
Yeah.
people are like, oh, it's so silly to, not be able to control how many cookies I eat. But I'm telling you, it's much harder than cocaine or alcohol because those you can stop. Like, food, you have to
Mm.
eat. It's
Good
harder.
point.
It's
Good
harder than
point.
any other addictive habit.
Yeah.
So, yes, get support. You deserve that.
Good point. And I suspect that might actually be the answer to my last question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to see. People are driving, they're doing their laundry, they're half listening when they listen to a podcast. So, what's the one thing that you really want somebody listening to take away from this discussion?
I would say stop blaming yourself for all the things you've tried that haven't worked for you.
Mm,
Stop blaming yourself for the money you've spent on diets, the money you've spent on programs, to, end your belly fat or deal with your carb issue, whatever.
mhm.
Like, because they're usually focused on food, the symptom of food and weight.
Yeah.
Not that you can't learn good things from those things, but they haven't unlocked the magic key to stopping the madness. And
Yeah.
and we as emotional eaters always blame ourselves as if we failed. And I'm here to say you didn't fail. Those things failed you because they didn't get you. And same with even GLP-1s, Ozempic. Like people will put the weight back on if they don't have a
Yeah.
deeper solution, And so you didn't fail any of these things. They failed you when they didn't give you tools for being able to actually sustain the weight loss. Like you
Yeah.
can't just lose weight and everything's going to be happy. You will absolutely put the weight back on if you don't have other things in place, dealing with your emotions, dealing with your stress, creating new habits for self-care. Like, without
Yep.
those things, 98% of the time, you will gain it back. You're in good company. It's not just you. You're not a failure. You were trying hard at the wrong things. So it's
I
time to
really
try hard at
appreciate
the right
that.
things.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that message because the more we blame ourselves for stuff, the worse it gets. So 100% agree.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tricia, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really interesting.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Tell you what, every time the answer to what's the one thing you need to remember is just perfect for a podcast about mindset in midlife. Please stop blaming and shaming yourself. Even if you're listening to this because you're curious, see what you might learn, but maybe you're not hearing that anything kind of describes you and you're not feeling like you have an emotional eating issue, there might be something else. Ooh, haven't we talked about all those menopause symptoms? We tell ourselves we must be crazy. Nobody else must be experiencing this. It's not true. It's not just you. It's not your fault. And you can get better. And if that isn't an empowering message to be running around in your brain, I don't know what is. It's not just you. You can get better. If you went around telling yourself, I can get better, that's just as good as one of my favorite affirmations. I can figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. I can figure it out. It's very much, yes, I can. Maybe it'll be a bumpy ride, but yes, I can. And you can. So, if you're curious or you're hearing something that feels maybe like you're identifying with it, make sure to go to the show notes, take Tricia's quiz. It's a quick little quiz. Find out kind of where you sit on that spectrum that she described. And then if eating is not really the aspect that you're looking for help with, but you are struggling with moving forward, you are struggling with making decisions, you are feeling like you need a reset at this point in your life, go to CherylPFisher.com/coaching and check out the Midlife Recharge. It might be exactly what you need. And in the meantime, keep remembering, midlife is your time to take just a little bit better care of yourself. Just a little bit better. On the inside and the outside. And it makes a huge difference.